All right. And we're live. Hi, and welcome to Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and today I am here with Texas musician whose album Dirty Blonde and EPs Breath of Fresh Synths and Probable Cause are out now. Please welcome back my friend Sage Suede. How you doing today, Beb?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Good. Yeah, we were just talking before about his energy. Well, I mean, him having energy. I kind of get it because, like, as I've talked to you before about, I have an album written and I've already have an EP written after that. So like I'm constantly writing, but I'm not gonna have the money to do it. So if anyone wants to give me money, I will gladly take it.
Yeah, I get that. I started doing more recording at home, which gave me a little bit more flexibility on the timing. So I can go a little bit faster when I do all the editing, which is what I did on Drop the Beat, Breath of Fresh Synth. So
Right. I know how to do it because I went to school for audio engineering. I just am not good at producing vocals. It's not my strength. So I'd rather hand it off to somebody whose strength it is. Like, I can hand them a beat. I can be like, I've already written this. Let's just go in here, record, bang it out. That's why when I see some people who are independent artists taking 6 months to put out a project, I'm like, aren't you spending money on this? Wouldn't you want to get it done faster rather than like drag it out?
yeah,
Starting
I've never
producing.
taken that long really on a project. I usually am just kind of done by then. I guess there's some of my earlier albums where I might have been writing the lyrics over that period of time or whatever, but like, yeah, I usually move very, very fast once I get the recordings. I do like different things. Not everybody does the same process. Like I'll like double pan a lot. I like to do vocal doubles because I think it adds a lot to the sound. So I did an album, Dirty Blonde, that was choral layers. Everything was layered into chords. And
Yeah.
then that was stylistic for the album. So I veered away from it a little bit. So like Breath of Fresh Synth is mostly just raw vocal lines. There's not a lot of pitch bending or anything. So it's not like stacked into chords like the other album. And then the other one I did, Drop the Beat, which is uh, mostly about me getting like stalkers and stuff, like all the drama. Like so that one's kind of cathartic. I made it faster. I made it on a PS4 headset with the mic,
Oh wow.
rather than a compressor mic like I usually use for all my other albums.
Right.
So that one, it's a little more lo-fi, but it also has like more lo-fi samples, which makes it interesting. So
Well, I mean, the thing that you've railed about is something that I've kind of agreed with. You've definitely talked about like if people don't know this about Sage Suede, if you ain't following him on X, Twitter, whatever it is, this bitch hates autotune more than anything. Like that. Well, I mean, but first of all, I
I know
get
what
where you're
you mean by
coming from. I get where you're coming from because it's you you don't have to have much talent anymore. And when you hear people who are a lot of at least what I've looked at is when you hear artists who are heavily auto-tuned on their tracks, a lot of times there's stuff going on in the background, like there's a ton of background noise going on to hide the fact that they don't have any talent.
Well, sometimes they'll have a completely different line, and then they'll pitch bend the whole thing to be in key, and then it doesn't. None of it sounds good, but it changes the key, so it's still in key with the song. And
Yeah.
so people that they just want it to be in key. They don't really know, really if it's a good delivery or not. They might be satisfied with that, but usually it doesn't sound that good. It gets more warbled. It's kind of obnoxious to me. I don't know the
My
sound of it.
the thing I don't like, and I can hear it when I hear it, when you clearly hear somebody where they did that and you can clearly hear it in the song. It's like, well, if the producer was good, they would have made sure that you couldn't have heard that. They would have like brought up the beats so that way would have hidden the fact. But they like focused on your vocals because you're singing well.
Yeah, sometimes
Debatable.
that's something people will do. They'll like decrescendo out or something. Um, yeah, I was listening to like a remix of like Grooves in the Heart, like the Ukrainian DJ Super DJ Dimitri. Like he's one of the founding members of D-Light, like, and he dropped like the remix like yesterday or whatever, so it's free for like a day to download. Um,
Right.
and it's a really good mix. And I noticed like the vocals a little more compressed and stuff, you know. And that's the kind of thing that like I like listening to people like that where they've been in electronic music for a long time. I can really hear like, you know, uh, how they've improved over time and stuff too. It sounds like they added more compression and they did some new layers and new types of reverbs and stuff, and so it's cool. I like their new mixes. I'm probably one of the bigger fans of that band because they're not that well known anymore. But you know, so
Well, I mean, in some ways, I kind of get it. You're also kind of not well known. This is at least how I described you when I was talking to somebody. And I don't mean this to be at all offensive. I actually think this is a
you can say
compliment
hipster
saying
about
this.
me a lot. So if that's what you mean, I mean,
Well, no, what I've kind of described your sound as, you're kind of like a Yoko Ono of like electronic music.
I didn't used to get that. Somebody, you might have been the person that thought of that, but nobody said it to me yet, and I just realized like a while ago somebody was thinking that, and I was like, I finally get it because I started listening to Yoko Ono again. I like the album
Yeah,
I'm a Witch, and like because I like the Peaches song a lot. Kiss Kiss is really good, like track by her. I don't know her that well, but like I realized what you're
right.
saying. Like I started using some Japanese and stuff, and it sounds more like it's that fusion.
Yeah,
It's she has a really good taste, so I get why John Lennon was with her now. Like she has such great taste in like culture and art and stuff. So that must have been what really won him over, you know.
but well, my thing is when people always talk about how people have to have amazing, amazing singing voices. It's to me, it's not true. It's especially in the electronic field, you really don't need to. You just have to be able to know how to produce yourself well. But for me, I've always felt it's more about being able to tell a story and like putting yourself rawly into an album. That's why like the album I've written that I'm planning on coming out with, I'm hoping to be able to move to Detroit by the end of June and have the album out by September. Fingers crossed. It's called Confessions of a Transvestite. And essentially what it is it's my story of my early like late teens through like my 20s as I'm getting into being 30. So like it's just I talked about everything. I talked about the stuff that people don't want to talk about. I talked about being raped and sexually assaulted. Like this is stuff where some people would be like, "Oh no, just shy away from that. Don't say that." I'm like, "No, I'm going to put this to a beat that's in your face so you could hear my pain and you're going to dance to my pain while I'm telling you this story."
Well, it's an important story to tell people, you know, like the Me Too movement
Yeah.
and everything. It doesn't go as much with both genders as it should. So I definitely think it's important to express that because it helps everybody, you know. Just being
Right.
able to
And then
talk about in the first place, you know what I mean? Not that happening, of course. That's
no, no, no. I'm well, first of all, this is the thing. I always say with me, probably much like you might agree with as an artist, I regret nothing that's happened to me because I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't had that happen to me. And I wouldn't be able it's the moment where you sit down and like say, I'm ready to confess this now. And when you put it all into an album, it's sort of I describe releasing an album or like writing an album kind of like you're so filled up with like stuff that you just have to vomit it out.
hmm
And when you're done, it's like, yes, you have to perform those songs and you always will have the same intense energy when you're performing the songs, but it's so freeing.
I'd
And
say as long as it feels that way too, because it can also be really hard to perform something dramatic, you know. So if you make a track that's really sad, it might be really hard to perform it often. You know, if you don't write it a certain way that works for you, you know, you'll have to
well,
concentrate.
I
So it's up to
right.
you if you want to embody that or not. I think some artists have gotten, you know, like really sad jazz singers, blues singers. Some of them have maybe gotten caught up in that, and it can be really hard for them. I haven't written a song where I've really been that sad, so I don't know. But I think
It's
it's great that you are. You know, the depth is nice.
well, it's hard because like I express the like yin and yang. So like the song I wrote about being raped is called Rape. That one's a little bit more angry and intense because I was more angry at that situation because that's how I lost my virginity and like that's how it's how it shaped a lot of the ways I viewed men through the years because as I explain to people, when you're raped, you go one of two ways usually. You either become a prude because you feel that partners slash men are evil, or you kind of sleep with the whole world because you feel like you're useless. And
I guess sometimes that does happen. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm living proof that that's happened. It's why I never was able to have a successful relationship because like for years I didn't admit it was rape, and then once I like looked upon it, I heard the beat, I sat down, I wrote it honestly in about half an hour, and it was like so freeing. And then that's rape, and then Don't Touch Me, which happened later, was about being sexually assaulted. That song's more sad because it was more sad that I let myself become a victim again. And
Yeah.
with that, I mean, this album's a lot, but I also, at least I don't, this is why people like me as an artist, because I'm not afraid to piss people off, and I'm not afraid to tell people what I honestly think.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's like liberating to do that too. Like,
You know?
so something that I like. I watch a lot of crime shows sometimes because like I like to be informed, you know, about like what's going on, and a lot of people get victimized by different things, and some of those things are really horrible. You know, like bad and murders and stuff, and they say over time that it's just not something they want to hold on to anymore. You know, there's a certain point where it's like that acceptance is a great feeling. So I'm glad that you're able to feel that and express that and help other people get over it too, because I feel like when somebody really like is very traumatizing to you, you can either let them just hold on to you forever, or you can let go of that whole thing that happened. Like it's really hard to let go of sometimes, but letting
Right.
go of it, like actively choosing to, is part of that healing process for a lot of people that go through really serious trauma, so
Right. And it's also, it usually comes when you get older because when you're in your 20s, you're not, well, I would say when you're in your early 20s to mid 20s, once you get in your late 20s, you start to see the world a little bit better. But it's like you don't have the like overall, you don't have the like emotional capacity, or I would even say somewhat the mental capacity to deal with that. So like you act irrationally. That's why
can be a little like foolish or gullible or something, you mean?
you're foolish and
Substance
gullible,
use, yeah.
at least
They don't know their
me.
limits and those things. It's important to know that too.
Right. I was also very angry. That's the thing. Like in some of my music, I sound angry. But I say you see on this album, I've calmed down a lot from when I was 18 or like first starting out in the clubs because I was very sort of like angry because I had so much like I've been fucked over by the world and all this, and you just
Are you adding
and
punk rock too, like guitars or anything? Because I feel like that's really vibing with the style you're talking about. Like,
well, I would say not guitars. I would say the closest like song to a rock song. There's a song I wrote on the album called Confession, and like it has this 303 hard synth that sounds like a guitar, and it has instead of like a traditional drum track, it has like a beat that sounds like somebody's playing live and hitting cymbals when you're hearing the song. So that's what I like about it. No, the album's pretty much done, but the synths are very well, there some of them are intense, some of them are not. Some of them I experiment in different styles because when people say what type of music do you do, it's like if I'm feeling this on this song, I'm feeling this on this song, I'm feeling that on that song. It's like if I'm feeling EDM towards this song, I'm gonna go EDM towards this song. If I'm feeling Italio disco towards this song, I'm gonna do that. Like there's no one style because first of all, when you do albums in one style, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, all their songs sound the same." I fucking hate that argument when people say that. Like,
It doesn't make sense a lot of times for electronic artists. I mean, I guess sometimes that happens with certain bands, but, it doesn't usually make sense with like, the variety in your samples and stuff.
yeah, but I guess in some people it's fine. I mean, when people always say you have to grow and change and evolve, it's like, but if you have a sound, why do you need to change that sound? You're not changing that sound for your fans. You're changing that sound for everybody else.
So somebody said that to me once,
Yeah.
and they're like an editor at a magazine, and like I did keep working with them or whatever, but when they said that, I realized like I could do more vocal features. So for a while, I had a bunch of features, just tons of features, just to make it like more variety. And then I
Right.
was like, okay, I don't really need to have this many features because I could still do everything solo with that much variety. And so then I added like more vocal layers. I did the chords stacked and
Yeah.
stuff. Um, and now I'm doing more like, just different kinds of beats and stuff. I get a lot from Dasmond too. Like I'll make my own beats majority of the time, but Dasmond sends me a lot
Right.
too. So a lot of my recent tracks are also with Desmond DeLeon too. So, um,
Right.
but
And
yeah,
it's like my thing is like I would like to work with you on a song at some point, but I'd also at least for me, I'm very old school. I'm very 90s when I take this approach. A lot of this thing of people saying, "Oh, you're over in this studio over here, I'm in this studio over here. We're going to helicopter the vocals in."
yeah. I
And
don't
now
know if
never
anybody still does that. Somebody has to. Probably Sony Universal's wasting money on it or something. But it seems like
No,
you
I know
never.
one of my friends Benji did that. He did that with his song his single "Marry Me." He got a song from crap, who is it? I think it was like I don't remember. I think it's like DJ Mitch Freak or something like that. I might be wrong about that, but that's what he did. He was the person he was working with was in Nashville. He lives in Harlem, and like they just recorded it separately and they combined it together. But I'm like,
Yeah, that's what I usually do. Yeah.
yeah,
I've done that with a
see,
lot of people around the world too, because like as long as they
right,
have a good studio set up, like so for like the song New Diet, I worked with Girl X Highlight, and she's in Lagos, Nigeria. So they had their own studio there. So she recorded at their studio and then sent me vocals. And we do that every time we work together. And then Honeybee Sweet will do that in Australia. And then I have some other people I know, like there's this Romanian DJ Bad Ninja I work with a lot. He's made
yeah,
me a lot of remixes. And yeah, so I usually just get them recorded separately. But sometimes people send me the beat and then I just record the vocal. But I do my editing too, which I think makes a big difference because otherwise it kind of stalls. You get stuck, and that's probably why I work pretty fast. So
yeah, I know. I'm just, but the thing, okay, so I guess I can ask you this question. I'll skip to this one and then we'll keep going. So, if you had the opportunity to be signed to a major label, would you take it or would you rather stay independent?
I mean, it depends what it is. I've gotten like offers before that I didn't accept because they just didn't really offer me anything. I mean, there was one agent label. I don't really want to say who it was, but they're in like South Africa, and they offered to give me a deal, but the deal was that they were going to send me like a bunch of tracks, and I would just record over them, and they would get like more than 50%. And it wasn't that bad. It was just the fact that I wasn't getting like a sign-on bonus or anything, and it's on my existing collateral. Is already out there. Like I already have hundreds of songs, so it just wasn't compelling enough. That's all.
It's
maybe a more compelling offer that'd be different, you know.
It's arguably because I would say, and it's the reason why I wouldn't want to. It's like, at least for me, I never want to be the person sitting in a boardroom with a bunch of suits and bunch of assholes in suits, literally saying like, "Okay, what TikTok challenge can we make for this song?"
Oh God.
That's where I'd be. That's where I'd be like, "Fuck off." There's the challenge. Like,
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah,
because that's, at least for me, this is one thing that I can't stand. I mean, granted, you did some shorter songs on this EP. I don't mind it because like you did some songs that were actually a length of a song.
oh, so are you talking about Drop the Beat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I made a little faster because a lot of it was about people stalking me and stuff, and so I didn't want all of them to be long. Some of them are shorter, like they're under 2 minutes, and I feel like I usually agree with artists like Anita because she's pretty forward with her production too. She did that on her new album too, and I actually really like that album. So, but then the one after that, I made sure pretty much everything's over 2 minutes. I think everything on Breath of Fresh Synth is over 2 minutes because I made it a little more pop.
Well, see, my thing is, I don't like the 2 minute 30-second tracks. I mean, granted, you're working by yourself, that's fine, but it's like, I remember the example that I always showed up to people was "Unholy" by Sam Smith and Kim Petras. It's like, you have a 2 minute and 30-second song. One person does one verse, one person does the other verse. Why was Kim Petras there? Like, this isn't a song. Like, if you're gonna do that kind of a song, you need 3.5 minutes. Like, but
they might not be doing enough like hype vocals, you know, to hype each other up if they don't sound like they quite fit, you know, because it's
yeah,
usually better they have that kind of intro and they come in. So that's probably all it is, you know. She probably just jumped in and they gave her full solo because she's popular enough, you know.
but it's also, at least from me, and I told my best friend this, like, I have no desire to be famous. I don't know if you feel that way. I have no desire to be famous. Like, if it happens, it happens. But like, the
It just
idea
depends what
of,
that means. Sometimes it's terrible. Sometimes it's like you're grumpy cat and you just have a stroke or something because you don't like the stress. You know, like it needs to be something that's not bad.
right, it's, I mean, granted, I like the idea of having fans, but there's nothing of, it's weird, for at least for me, because let's be clear, I'm a big bitch. I'm in hair. I'm in whatever. It's like, whenever I'm out, I'm on. Like, there's no like hiding me. Like, I'm pretty damn distracting. Like, and that's why I know whenever I'm leaving wherever I'm at, if it's a hotel room or whatever, I know like, okay, I have to be on. I have to be nice. I have to be, not that I'm a bitch, but like, it's like, it's like, if even if you're in a bad mood, it's like, bad mood's gonna be shut off right now. You gotta be nice to everybody you see, because that, maybe their one interaction with you down the line, something might happen to you, and then that's what they're gonna remember.
Yeah, I
And
guess that's true. Sometimes it, I don't know. I feel like the one thing is just when people give you too much attention, it starts becoming like you'll just say anything to make them back off, kind of thing. So I don't know. Some people just don't respond to niceness at all, and there are also people that like religiously will harass each other because it's just what they do. And so if you tell them things nicely, they just never respond to you until you know, just tell them to eat shit and die, which, you know, you never do to anybody nice. But
right.
people that act like that, they're harassing you for you to tell them off. I mean, there's not much else you can do.
But I get it when some people have to do it. My thing is, especially from doing this podcast, I very much have become an advocate for the go-go stripping community, because like, they
They're
get
usually
treated,
pretty nice.
they get treated fucking horribly by people.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, and it's like, when people are like, in that situation, you can't be nice because you have to be like somewhat arrogant, because if you don't, some guys could come up there and try and stick their
I've had
fingers in
that
your
problem,
ass. Like,
yeah. So I go to bars, right? And one of the bars I go to, it does have some strippers, but like I'll
yeah,
just go there because like I like the bar anyway, and it's on a different part of the bar. It's not the whole thing. It's the dark bar has the strippers, and so
right.
sometimes I'll go and I'll be wearing something like a thong or something, and I forget that it has black lights, so it's just like lit up, and people come over and like try to hit on me and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm just chilling, and then I go to the other side of the bar where there's no strippers to get away from them, but that's happened to me more than 3 or 4 times, and I've never stripped there. I just go to get a
Well,
drink and like hang out.
I mean, yeah, I get it. First of all, I will say this: like, you've always looked good, but like, particularly recently, like, you look amazing. Like in the last like few shoots that I've seen you in, like. Not to try and kiss your ass too much, but you are my friend. I feel I should be nice to you.
Well,
Like, but, but I mean, like, I looked at that. I'm like, damn, that's hot. Like, because at least my view, as I told somebody, and I seriously, when people say like, "Oh my gosh, you're attracted to your friend," my response is, if you don't want to fuck your friends, then you have ugly friends. Like, that's, I
I mean,
mean,
occasionally
it,
maybe.
it
Uh,
it's so true. Like, it's
be
so
cool with each
true.
other, yeah.
I told somebody that I'm like, what? I mean, granted, I'm not saying you're gonna act on it, but it's like you should want to think your friends are attractive. If you think your friends look like they got hit by a truck, then why would you be friends with them or tell them what you honestly think? I don't know.
Well,
A lot of people aren't that blunt. I'm too blunt for my own good.
yeah.
I mean, I know it. That's why I thought about living in LA at one point. I'm like, I can't live in LA. I'll get kicked out of every party in 3 days.
Well, maybe
Because
not. I mean, depends what part you're in. People can be kind of wild. I did this show at Viper Room, and then afterwards, I was hanging out with my friend Jime and his girlfriend Jenny, and we were just like chilling at the bars, and she like made this friend with this guy, and he like stopped somebody in the middle of the street, just like jumped in front of the car and flicked him off so he could cross the street. It was right after I did my set, and I was like really embarrassed because I was like, I hope this lady doesn't hate me. Like I was like saying sorry, because he's just being all wild like that, like flicked them off so we could cross in front of them. But the light was still green, so I
right.
thought it was ridiculous. Um, but we just kind of laughed at it. I mean, I felt bad for the lady. I hope she's not mad at me if she ever finds
No.
out that was me. So.
Well, my thing is, I point out the obvious thing, and this is the thing in LA. I don't know why every go-go dancer stripper in LA, every queer go-go dancer slash stripper now thinks that they can be a rapper. Like, I just,
Hmm. I know a
I
few that aren't starting in rap, but you know what? Now that I think about it, if they did, I'd be interested. I'm curious.
well, I mean, some people are good, but it's like, it's like everyone's thinking like, oh my gosh, Cardi B. I'm like, first of all, bitch, you Cardi F. So like, get the fuck off the stage. Like, nobody nobody wants to hear you like not be able to rap on a beat. Like, please.
Has she had like
Yeah.
incidents recently or something? I hadn't seen that.
Who? Who?
Cardi B.
No, no, I'm talking about the go-go strippers being rappers. I'm like, you are Cardi.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. I know what you
yeah,
mean. They don't really
yeah.
write as much, and it can be frustrating. Because they might have really good vocal delivery or something, or if it's somebody that doesn't necessarily make their beats, but they probably don't arrange their vocals
Mm,
either and stuff, and it's not as holistic. And I feel like that's the type of artist that you might like them, but you like them when their producers really fly. And if they switch producers, you might not like them at all because they're not really honing their style as much as their producer is. So I still like some songs by her, uh,
right.
but I don't know. It depends
Well,
which
no,
one.
with Cardi B, I like her older stuff. My thing is, if somebody told me the thing of like when people say Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, I'm always more of a Nick. I'm more Nicki Minaj anyway. Like, because Nicki Minaj is amazing. Like, there is, there are very few artists that like are amazing throughout. Nicki Minaj is one of them. I'd argue like Cher is one of them.
So I was
Yeah.
thinking about that song "Stupid Ho" the other day because
Yeah.
I watched the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I've never seen it before, and then I was thinking about "Stupid Ho," and I was like, "Is this what she means?" Because I looked into their whole divorce thing, and she's like, "He uses weed and marijuana." Shut up! Shut up! Like, she just sounds like so prudish and like stingy and weird and like a horrible wife, honestly, if you're gonna talk like that. And I was like, that must be what Stupid Ho is about. Maybe it's not because she says it's about Shakira. But I don't even feel like Shakira is very relevant. The Shakira rhymes are
Wait. Stupid Ho was not about Shakira.
well, when she's in the
It's
cage, she says she's mocking She Wolf or something.
oh, okay. No,
Or
I know
some
who
of the drama that is that.
I
Actually,
know who the song's about. The song's about Lil Kim.
do you think it's about Lil Kim?
She
I never
said it
heard
was
that.
about Lil Kim
Did she?
back when it came out.
Maybe
Yeah.
some of the rap. Yeah, maybe some of the verses. Because I don't think she cares
Yeah.
all the verses, is my point. Some
No.
of the verses are definitely her, but not all of them necessarily. Um, yeah. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking it could be about Brad and Angela too, because she says, bitch, you see where Brad at? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff can be
I never really looked
about a
into
lot
the details.
about a lot of different things. It's like somebody says, "Oh my gosh, I use that song to talk about my relationship with my man." It's like, well, actually, I was talking about this person over here, but it's like, you go ahead. Like,
What
I
about
actually,
when Cardi B parks her car on her Versace driveway? Do you think she actually has one? I've never seen one, so she might be
what?
lying.
Who? Cardi B has a what? Versace driveway?
It's in one of her songs. It's in like Moneybags. Just that she parks her car in a Versace driveway, but does she really have a Versace driveway or are they just bricks?
Well, first of all, she didn't write it, so like,
Well, she might not have even written that lyric. Good point. Actually,
no.
I wonder.
Cardi B admits that she doesn't write her own lyrics, and it's like, why would
Obviously,
you
one of
do
her
that?
husbands did at one point. Does a lot of her lyric writing too. But part of that's because it's hard to sell to people, and sometimes it's easier to perform on stage with a female as well. And so some men do their writing and then they give it to women all the time because they aren't necessarily going to perform it themselves for that reason. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's easier
Right.
for me to perform with a woman on stage because I'm not sure if the crowd's going to like me. Which usually, everybody's liked me, but there were events that I made sure to do that, and I'm glad I did because they might not have liked me otherwise. Um, you know,
Well, I actually, ooh, I didn't even write that, but I'm gonna think about that. So,
I could appeal to them
being
more now without a dancer, but now I know what they're like a little better. So
being that you're in Texas, like, granted, yes, you're in Austin, which is the liberal part, but still, you're in Texas. So, like, how is your music like overall perceived in Texas? Because you're very, you're very like, at least my thing. I could very much see you thriving in New York City, like, just
I've driven in LA. I
style
haven't
wise.
driven in New York yet, actually. But I probably could. I'm a pretty good driver. Yeah.
You don't have to drive in LA, or you don't have to drive in New York. That's what I love about New York. If
Yeah,
I could afford to
exactly.
live there, it's like you can get rid of a car. That
But
sounds
I could.
amazing.
Yeah, I could drive in LA. I know I'd be capable of it. I just pain in the
Yeah.
ass to parallel park sometimes, but and feed the meter. But yeah, you must have more apps nowadays for that.
Well, I don't know if they have one. I know they have one in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. I use it all the time because,
We have one in Austin. Actually, we have
yeah.
parking apps. Yeah, so we can feed the meter from our phones. But sometimes it doesn't load when I'm at the bar, and I just end up leaving. So
See, my thing is because I always drive myself because, like, especially now, Uber and like Lyft are expensive, and like, I'm like, granted, it's like I don't drink that much when I go out anyway, so it's like, why would I spend $20 to go this one trip when I could like drive my own car and eventually I'm going to pay like 40, $50 to fill up my car. It makes more sense. And plus, like, especially, I don't wear heels when I drive. I like wear my cheaters, and like as I'm
That's
getting
really
out, I like put
decent,
on my shoes.
decent mile per gallon. It's not that bad.
What?
40 is still pretty good for
Yeah.
like mile per gallon. I get a really good one, but it started to say
Well,
88 on my car, but I don't think it's completely accurate in the pedometer.
we'll see. We'll see. My thing was
They're
I
pretty
have a
good.
I have a Hyundai. I have like an older Hyundai Sonata, so like that's that's why it's proof out there, kids. Just because we all dress fabulously doesn't mean we drive fabulous cars. I drive. Well, my thing is a car is a car. I love when rich people like brag about stuff. I'm like,
I was
at the
driving a
end,
red Hyundai in LA when I was there. I rented one. Yeah, it was a pretty good car. Yeah,
yeah,
pretty sure. But yeah, to your question, yeah, people
uh,
in Texas like my music.
yeah,
I think most people from Austin do. Like the culture. The thing about it is, we're still dirty South hip hop, like Atlanta. Um, it's kind of somewhere between that and LA is kind of our style. It's like in the middle.
right,
I definitely bring more of these other genre fusions and stuff because I'm a polyglot, and I'm really into the London sound. I'm really into the Paris sound. I combine everything that I really like. So
yeah,
we just sit here and then just go Texas bubble. But yeah, people in Texas usually like it. It's usually people that move here that don't speak enough English. They get really confused sometimes. People that speak Spanish don't have a problem with me because I have enough in there. I have some Spanglish and some Spanish tracks and stuff.
yeah.
I don't think I have a full Spanish track out yet, but I'm working on a demo that's almost done. But but
Wait,
yeah,
wait,
so
wait.
they're cool with me. But a lot of other cultures they come here and they just don't understand enough English and they don't look up the lyrics and then they say weird things like "sugar baby in the kitchen," and I'm like, why didn't you just look up the phrase "sugar baby" on Urban Dictionary like everyone else? So everyone in my generation, everyone that I went to high school with, everybody that's younger than me too, we all use Urban Dictionary when we don't know what a slang
Right,
phrase is or something. We don't just sit there and then like make up violent lies about men because they made a hip hop song. So it's kind of obnoxious. But I've also noticed people that are like that. A lot of them they're just jealous and they're not really working on anything. They're strung out on hard drugs and stuff. So I actually had to move across town because people were stalking me and doing that.
yeah. I have a question about your stalker. Like,
And I only lived there for a few months. I lived there for like 6 months and I moved. The place before I was having that problem as well. And when I noticed people were starting to do it at my new place, like after the first month of living there. So I lived there for 1 month with like no issues and then it started happening. And I was sitting on my balcony and I could hear these bitches just driving by and yelling my name out their car window. And they don't know me. And I'd already legally changed my last name. They weren't using my new name. They're using my other name and I'd already moved
right,
like across town when I moved to my place before that.
right,
So it's none of my friends from like, school and stuff that are on this side of town. So I really like knew I was being stalked when I was sitting on my balcony. I could hear them like yelling my name out the window because they're crazy and they never met me. And one of my friends, I was dating them, right? And so they were coming over at both apartments and they said there was some blonde chick that was just standing outside glaring at her, and I was like, that must have been my stalker. I never even met her. Like, it's so annoying to me that this happened to me at this apartment, and I didn't like get to tell them to stop or whatever. And they just kept doing it. And I was trying to get them to stop, but the police could never intercept them because they just never opened their door. And there was never enough evidence to make them stop. It's like legal for
right,
someone to harass you if you're in an apartment and they're just yelling at you through the walls all day. Because until you've collected data, unless you have it on recording or something, they're not going to do anything to help you. It's very frustrating. So that happened to me for a few years, and then I just decided to move across town, and I like it better here. It's a better environment, but people here
well,
aren't acting like so ghetto about things. Like it wasn't even a bad apartment complex. Like a luxury apartment and
yeah,
stuff, and they both call themselves that, but it was pretty bad as far as the way that people were yelling at me and being crazy in my direction. And I think there was some violence in the community that I didn't personally witness that caused them to act that way. But it
right,
bothers me that I was still targeted with harassment for several years by people that were completely wrong. Um,
right.
yeah, so
Well, okay.
a lot. And
Well, no,
those are
no, no.
people that they didn't speak a lot of English. They were viewing it
Right,
from their home culture, which was
right,
not very progressive or similar to the United States in those ways. And
right,
there's usually cultures that are prohibitive about being queer and stuff too. So they use that as an excuse to make up violent lies and harass you. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. Two things to you having a stalker. One, I mean, granted, you had to do it. Did you hate the fact that you had to use your legal name to get verified on Instagram because of the fact that you have a stalker?
so not really. That made me feel a lot better because I already legally changed my name before because they were harassing me, and I changed it because I was like, I just don't want these people to bother me. And
Right.
my name was more European, so what I actually did was I just defined it. I made it palatable for Americans because the average reading level is like 8th grade here. And you also get penalized on Google if you write over that reading level, by the way. So unless you're on like a technical field.
Yeah.
So it was just something for people to understand me is the main thing. But I'm also glad I did it because in the process of them harassing me, that's when I decided I might as well do this. This might be one of the reasons I'm getting harassed because the English cognate just is not working for me. And I feel like if I had a Spanish name, I would have been better off in those situations as well. So I probably wouldn't have changed my name if it was Spanish, or if
Right.
it had a better American English definition for people. So I just defined it for them because they didn't get it. And so I feel fine posting it. I'm fine with people knowing that about me. It's just the fact that people are harassing me and screaming at me, and they didn't know who I was, and they didn't deserve to know me because they were creepy. You know, they
No, I mean,
were terrible. I wrote like 5 books about it. Several novelettes. They're all on Amazon now. So
I've never had an actual stalker. I've had someone who's like kind of done it online, but it's like to me, I'm like, it's like that's fine. You're not gonna get to me anyway. You don't know where I am. Like, you could do it all you want, but it's like, okay. So also with that, I mean, granted, you said it's a little bit better. Did you consider moving out of Texas to avoid having, or moving out of Austin to avoid having a
Well,
stalker, or
part of
like,
what I realized is that people from Austin, they're very nice and they like me for the most part. Most people already know who I
yeah,
am in Austin. If they don't, then they probably aren't going to hate me outright or have any issues with me because I generally am pretty typical for the city. Like I'm still atypical because I work really hard and stuff, but I don't think
right,
I'm the most unique person in the world. You know what I mean? I still reflect the culture of Austin because that's mostly where I'm from. So um,
right,
it can be frustrating for those reasons. But that's also why I don't really feel like I necessarily want to leave is because I feel like most people that are from Austin they do like those things. They like dirty
yeah.
South hip hop. They like electro. They like the stuff I put together and the fusions and they like art. Um,
Well,
Austin isn't always the best city for it because I do feel like
yeah.
there's a little bit of Bible thumping, if that makes sense. I'm sure you see
Yes,
that in
absolutely.
Florida too.
Absolutely, of course.
How do you feel about Bible thumping on music? It's like weird, right?
How do I feel about it? I hate it. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Why is it
very
weird? It's like,
I'm I'm agnostic leaning on atheist. So I mean that's my whole view. So like as we were talking about before, my thing is I'm planning, as I told you, I'm planning on moving to Detroit. My reason for that is like Detroit is the most affordable city in the United States currently, especially with today's
Detroit's a
economy.
good part of Detroit. That's the only thing. It's gotten safer, but you still need to check your borough right.
I lived in the hood. This is the thing. I lived in the hood in Orlando. I know what I'm getting into. I'm fine. My thing is, you live above the first floor. You're fine. That's literally. I don't want to live on the first floor anyway. I want to live on the second or third floor. Like I don't like being on the ground. It makes it so that Jehovah's Witnesses can come over
I
and
just
knock
see
on your
you in
door.
Atlanta too, right?
I was thinking about Atlanta at one
Isn't
point.
that your type of guy?
My thing with Atlanta is Atlanta's too expensive now.
Oh yeah, I hear a lot of people live outside the city. It's gotten a lot bigger. I think it's more than where I'm at now. Nowadays, Atlanta's one of the bigger cities.
Yeah, and well, the thing was, back when I thought about Atlanta, but once inflation came, it's like this is what I say to people in Detroit: you can find an apartment in Detroit for like $700-800 a month, and like that is not. You can also find them for 600. I found some that cheap, and I'm like I don't mind because my thing is I want to live alone because at least my
Yeah,
view is if if we're living together, we're fucking. Like, that's just my view on it. Like, I don't want to listen. I'm not a dirty slut, I promise. But it's like, well, I mean, my thing is because, like, granted, yes, do I want to hook up a lot? No, but it's like when I want to hook up or like do something, it's like I don't want to have to be like, oh, my roommate's here, I can't do anything. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like there can be some stress as far as like being yourself too, especially if roommates don't necessarily accept who you are or something.
yeah, and
Not
it's like,
everybody's a good roommate, so
and it's like I have a ton of shit. I'm a drag queen. I have like wigs and shoes. I need room for that stuff.
Mhm.
Like living at home, everything's like split up among like 2 or 3 different places. It's like once I have to like finally move, and then I'll be in Detroit for a while. I have a lot of ideas. One of them, if I end up ever doing it, I am going to ask you to be on this if I ever end up doing it. So I have a concept for a singer-songwriter show
Mhm.
where it's like you get singer-songwriters judging up-and-coming talent. So like you have them work together and you have the judges work with other people or have them work with the contestants, and then like every week there are 4 judges. You have each of the judges rotate out and perform a song that they're working on, so that way like they could kind of show that. I feel like it's original because there's not a singer-songwriter show out there now.
There's not too many, no. I think it's mostly just for like rappers and more
It,
model shows than there are. Yeah.
it's even like you think about American Idol. I had this conversation. I interviewed somebody yesterday, and they're like, American Idol has no impact now. Like, it's pretty much all about the judges. It's like it's been that way ever since they ran away from like Simon Randy Paula. It's pretty much been about like Steven Tyler or J Lo or Mariah Carey or Nicki Minaj. It's not about anyone who's actually on the show.
A lot of it is, yeah, about the celebrity judges for sure. That's like X Factor too. They do that too.
Oh, I say it's all of them. I know it's. I'm not saying like X Factor's amazing. It's just
It's working for Danny Minogue, so I'm happy about that.
is
I like
she
Danny Minogue.
she was on. Well, I don't. Is she on like UK or Australia? One of them.
Or I think she was on both. I don't know. She did
She
like several years of it. So
yeah.
yeah.
I know she did. Yeah, she did several years of it. Who else did? Kelly Rowlands did at one point. She did a few years, and like, it's like it's nice.
Oh, I saw Kelly was like in the press because she was tired of people asking her questions about Beyonce. I was like, good for you.
Well, I mean, it's fair.
I'm
Why
just sick
should
of it. I'd be like, seriously?
what you would want to be asked questions? Like, imagine being
Well, I
a
mean,
part
after
of a
like 10
group.
years, she must be like really done. It's probably been 15 now or something for
Well, it's
her.
because yeah. I mean, I get it. Her being annoyed because it's like at some point you want to be known as your own artist, and like Kelly Rowland is talented enough to be her own artist. She's interesting enough to be her own artist. Like being in Beyonce's shadow, like listen, I will say this. I feel like Beyonce is overhyped. Like, I'm not saying Beyonce's not talented. I think Beyonce's overhyped, though.
I guess it depends what you mean. It's been a long time that she's been in the spotlight, so I get that.
Well, it's
Like we've all seen
but
her for like 20 years now, so
well,
yeah.
it's
I wouldn't see it like though.
when I listen to like Renaissance, like I bought it and everyone's like, this album was amazing. Like I listened to the first like 4 songs. I listened to the whole album, but like when I was listening to the first 4 songs, I'm like, this is supposed to be an upbeat album. This album feels lethargic. Like it feels like it has to rev up. I'm like, this is supposed to be a dance album. You're supposed to be hitting on the core right when you start. and like slow down towards the middle. You don't speed up. Like, well, you know this making music. You don't ever like ramp up to the start. You start hard and then you slow down as you get into an album. That's what you're supposed to do.
Usually. But you can do whatever. I mean, some people do intros that are cool. I think Shy Girl did a pretty good intro for like Club Shy or something. Yeah. On my
Well,
album Drop the Beat, I was doing some intermission tracks, which I don't usually do. So like actually I made some songs for Yandere Simulator. So like they told me I could do it for their different clubs or whatever. So I think I only ended up finishing one, which is Gaming Club. I don't know if he's used it yet, but I made a few different ones. So the one like a cult was gonna be a cult club that says the song a cult, which is the intermission track, and then it also is a remix for the song Foin. So it's like the cult mix and the song a cult, right? And then I think I have another one which I call Dark Flight because it comes after the song Vampire. Um, that one I didn't put vocals to because it's just really trippy and it's all over the place. It's just supposed to like. So I was getting a lot of harassment in that apartment when I was writing that, and everything pretty much on Chop the Beat. I got tons of harassment while writing. I finished it when I moved into my new
right,
place because I was having trouble
right.
even just dealing with the space. So when I finished the tracks, I did like two here and then I was done. Um, and so the song Dark Flight, like part of it was just it's supposed to be scrambled because like if people are trying to like manipulate you or something,
Yeah,
it's distracting. But it sounds like like a really like alarming kind of radar sound. Very trippy. That one I feel like kind of sounds like you might be in space or something.
right.
That album. It's not quite here. It's not quite there. It's definitely not pop on its own because it's got a lot of vintage sounds and it's like very random. So it doesn't quite make sense. Really, that's not one I'm really recommending or super like excited to perform as much as Breath of Fresh Synth because it's just a better album, in my opinion. The other one's also really cool, but it's so avant-garde and trippy that most people won't understand it or take the time. So I still wanted to drop it because I still had that feeling, and a lot of those songs
Right.
are sad songs. I'm not like pouring my heart out necessarily, but a lot of them are written about me being upset, feeling bad.
Well,
Yeah, so
I mean, I first of all, I get it. So the album or the EP I'm planning on putting out after Confessions of a Transvestite, I'm calling it I'm decided I'm going to call it Prison Break. So essentially, it's about me leaving Florida because I feel very entrapped here, especially like living at home. I will admit that when people say like, "Oh, are you happy?" I'm like, "Look, I'm surviving. I'm not exactly the happiest, but everything will work out." But you get inside your own head and you think like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die here," but then it's like just keep on moving, just keep on going. Everything will happen when it needs to happen in time. Like,
it was really bad. It just like constant. It's like I would get harassed every time I ate something, every time I used my bathroom. And it was like my next door neighbor and my downstairs neighbor. And the one downstairs would walk directly beneath me all day and just mutter like a creep. And she was on something really bad. I think she was on fentanyl or something, which is one of the reasons I made that song Strip, because like I was living around all these people that were just really high and obnoxious, and there's something wrong with them. And I realized a bunch of them were probably on fentanyl because there was like this U.S. China summit where the president announced it at the top of the summit. So it's a big issue, and I know that's also happening with cartels and stuff. So it's a huge issue in the country. People just aren't very aware of it. So I wanted to bring attention to it, but I also realized
yeah.
that some of the insanity and the stalking was just because they were on this stuff and they couldn't think. You know,
See, I actually want to go
you
back
drive
and
me
listen
crazy, but
and listen to these songs now that you're telling me what they're about because it's like there's something about hearing a song and not knowing what it's about and then like hearing what something's about and it's like, oh, that makes sense now. Like, because
yeah, yeah.
I've become okay. So we already said that. Okay, so well, I mean, Do you believe that your music has been labeled too queer centric?
Um, I don't think so. Somebody told me once that I should either be extremely queer or be extremely straight, and I just kind of ignored them. And then there's this time I tried to submit to a magazine, and they told me to make it extremely straight, and then they would take it, so I ignored them.
Well,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I
this is
kind of
what
like I feel like having queerness in it is important because
yeah.
it's not substanceless. I mean, if it's not addressing anything, then it's not really, I mean, it's part of the honesty to it, but I mean, also it's part of freedom of expression for everyone. It's not a me
Right.
thing. And I've been doing more non-binary fashion because I love punk fashion. So I'm
Really?
not really like, I wouldn't say that I want to look effeminate necessarily, but I like punk versions of drag. So I'm okay with wearing something that looks a little female if it's punk. Like if it's kind of like black or leathery or non-binary, like a long sweater that's non-binary, stuff like that. That could maybe look like a sweater dress, depending how you wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? I know sometimes people talk about that.
This is what I would say. This is at least, and by the way, you're the artist. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I feel like musically, overall, I mean, granted, you split it, but like, I feel like musically, depending on what project you're on, you lean a little bit more straight, like musically, but your visuals are a little bit more queer. So
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that.
that's the bisexuality of it. And it's like,
Usually, if
oh,
my lyrics start to sound like they could be more feminine, I'll give them to a female artist for the most part, unless I'm being like pretty sarcastic, and then I'll just do it myself. But I'll always do like a demo version for them before I send it to them, and I always write their lyrics and stuff. But I'd be open to them doing it if they want. It's mostly just that usually adds to the cost of a project if they have to ideate those things. So
but I
I'm
mean,
open to it if they want. Yeah.
I like one song. I love one song of yours that I feel like is very sort of like queer centric, I would say. And you can tell me if I'm wrong about this. I loved the guitar sample you used in that one. That would be weaponized dem thighs. I really like
I could see that. Yeah,
that
yeah.
song.
It's about like booty shorts. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
I
I
also
mean,
have booty shorts in another song. So
yeah. And it's like with that, it's like granted, again, you be you. If somebody wants this is my response. If somebody wants a completely queer artist who does electronic music, hello, I'm coming out with an album sometime this year. Like, he's bisexual, I'm gay as fuck. Like, I'm gonna give you everything. Although it's my story, so it's not like I'm trying to be gay, but like I ask questions about relationships. I do this. There was one song that I wrote called "Are There Any Good Guys?" Where it was me like it was when I first started like thinking when I naively thought, "Oh, I can be in a relationship. I can do all this." And I was young and dumb and thought that you could find a relationship on Grinder and like that it would be long and successful, which I mean, it did end up happening for me. It did end up happening for me. I ended up dating somebody I met on Grinder for a year. So I mean, like
this
it's
sounded
not
like deadpan
impossible.
while you
It's
said
not
it.
impossible. It's not impossible, but it's like at some point,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
you
It's
know,
usually short-lived, kind of thing. You should do that though, like on a live comedy open mic or something. Just like
what? Just say
you're just like, I used to go on Grinder, and I thought relationships would be long and successful,
see
and so
See,
much
see, I,
serious.
I, I've wanted to do comedy because, like, one of my, I've written a joke and like, I've actually these jokes kind of go together where it's like I've been with a lot of black guys and my joke is that like I've been fucked by so many black guys, my ass is a stop on the Underground Railroad. So like,
Oh my god.
And it's like, and then you follow that up, but it's like, but it's not that I won't date white guys. I will. I'll do it once, twice a year. I call it community service. And like, very sort of, but it's like, my thing is, I always feel like I always have pointed out to people, interracial dating is the way of the future. Like, it just is. Everyone who's like, oh, I just want to be with a white person. I just want to be with somebody who's of my same race. Boring.
Some people do that.
I know people do that. We have a word for that. It's called lame. No, I'm kidding. You do you. So, okay. To float around. Okay, do you believe that sexualizing yourself makes people take you less seriously as an artist?
Definitely not. I think it makes them take you more seriously, which is odd because it sounds counterintuitive. But here's the thing: like anybody that gives you advice to the contrary thinks that you should act like a child star, and you cannot compete in the space with kids with cuteness. You just look like an idiot. So I think it's horrible advice to tell somebody don't be sexy, don't act like an adult because you should compete with the children in the kiddie pool. I think it's terrible advice.
I mean, I've never heard somebody give that advice, but yeah, that sounds fucking awful. Like,
Well, nobody's really justified it like me either, but they should. I mean, it makes no sense, honestly. I get like,
I
radio edits and stuff, make more radio edits. Like that's better advice, but I don't know.
I don't even agree with that. It's like, well, okay. With those radio edits, would that be stuff that you would theoretically perform at, say you got asked to do one at like a corporate event? Okay, like, I mean, I
I mostly
kind
just like I do samples over swear words, so I'll do the same track, but I'll put samples. So if there's like something about you know a, hooking up or something, it might be like a chick moaning or something,
yeah,
which works. So
yeah, I mean, like, but see, for some songs, it's like, overall, most songs, it sounds, um, it makes sense. I remember, like,
I haven't done it for everything because I feel like some releases I don't want to. Like I made "Fooling Around" and I released it with an underwear modeling lyric book. So that one, it's dirty intentionally. It's not
right.
supposed to be a radio friendly version. So I just don't want to do it because it would sound kind of weird. I don't know. It has a lot of heavy hip hop beats too, so it would kind of
Well,
reduce
what
the impact.
happens? What happens is, if you end up doing a like version of that, you'll end up having like a party up DMX version where like you hear the radio edit of that, and like every other word is edited out, and like they're making horse noises over the
Yeah,
lyric, and it sounds absurd. It's like, it's comical.
yeah,
You laugh
actually,
listening to it. Like,
the winning would be kind of cool. This one,
it's like,
see that.
my thing is, I would get it. Would I ever want to do a corporate event? See, I have a tendency to swear on stage. Like, I know that about myself. I actually got in
That's just
trouble.
like I did a
I
radio edit of this album, Dirty Blonde, and then
Yeah,
the other ones I didn't do radio edits of.
yeah,
So they'll have some clean songs, some non-clean songs, or the entire album's dirty. My first album's all clean, and then
yeah.
so
I
it switches
remember.
around. People just have to look, but I think that
Yeah,
makes it interesting because
yeah.
it's a catalog. It's not supposed to be one thing.
I remember one week I was performing at an open mic and I'd scream "motherfucker" at the end of one of my songs to like finish the set, and then like the following week I went to the same bar and I got told by the owner not to do that. They're like, "There's old people in the audience this week. There's old people in the audience this week." I'm like, so what? I'm at a fucking bar. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of
that's
fun.
why. Yeah, it's actually to my song "Confession" because what I do is I repeat the bridge at the end, which is, so that song is about me coming out in the Catholic Church and basically being told to suppress my queerness. Like, on one of the lyrics I say, when I came out, I said I was bi. You told me bury homo feelings inside. Said I need to find a woman to hitch. Don't even matter if I'm attracted to the bitch. Like, it's that, which some people may say that's intense, but I'm like, when you're telling a queer person not to be queer, that's what they're hearing.
Do you feel like that's
Yeah.
changed at all, or do you go to the same diocese? Like, could you
I
try
don't go to
different?
church.
Oh well, I mean, you don't have to. I'm just saying
Yeah.
if you were still wanting to go,
If
you have to
if
try to.
I if this is my thing. When you talk about it, I really I feel that religion is, and this is an unpopular opinion, I don't care. I feel like religion, it comes from ignorance, and like, if you look at the Bible, it's like, if you're saying that that stuff actually happened, you're dumb. Like, if you're saying that the snake is a metaphor, you're saying this is a metaphor. Okay, I kind of get what you're saying, but if you're thinking that there's an actual talking snake, a talking bush, um,
It
that
could have been marijuana.
that Jesus walked on water, like this sounds like, it sounds like the person who wrote the Bible tripped on acid when they wrote it. Like,
It has multiple authors, so it's kind of hard to pin down. But anyways, yeah, like, I don't really like necessarily lean any direction with Christianity or whatever, as far as like a particular sect or something. I just know
no,
a little bit about like I've had a lot of Catholic friends and stuff, and it's kind of funny because I joke about Catholics because I've had enough background with it, and other Catholics probably would too. Like I made a basically my point is I made a book about bad nuns because bad nuns are entertaining. I like movies about bad nuns, so I've seen a bunch of them. I like
oh,
ones in Spanish that are all about the dictatorship in Spain, and they're just really entertaining. I like movies about bad nuns, so I wrote a book about bad nuns that make their own church and stuff, and
yeah,
it's kind of the thing is I'd be worried about it maybe if it was a different sex, but I feel like you just go to confessional and you get forgiven. So it's
yeah,
just kind of a joke. I don't know. With other Catholics, I talk to other Catholics that are kind of like that,
yeah.
and they get how that's funny. I don't know how to explain it. I don't really
Well,
consider myself necessarily, but I've gone to Catholic churches and stuff, so I'm not
yeah.
like completely out of the loop, right? Uh, yeah. So I don't know if you get
W-
the humor there.
Well, no,
Maybe you
I
do.
when you said a movie about bad nuns, so like, there's this
If you read
movie.
the
I don't
book,
know
you
if you've
can
heard
get
of
it.
it. It's called Sister Mary. It came out like in 2011. So it's like, it's about this detective who like eventually like dresses up as a nun at night and ends up killing people. Like,
Oh my gosh. I kind of want to
it,
see this because I'm curious what it's about. But
yeah,
the cover is really funny.
yes, it is a really funny movie. It's a really stupid movie, like, but it's one of my favorite queer movies. I like some that are serious. I like some that are like comedies.
Yeah, I've seen
Eh,
a lot. I saw this one with Aubrey Plaza recently. It was pretty good.
yeah.
I like some of the movies by like Pedro Almodovar. He's got like I think it's Entre Tinieblas is by him. It's called Dark Habits in English. Um, and there's this movie called by Harmony Korine called Mr. Lonely. That's really good. Where they're skydiving nuns out of planes. I think you'd like that one probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, my book is just like it's just really over dramatic because I started doing psycho thriller dramas because like people were giving me drama, but also it's just a genre that like me and like my sister like to watch growing up and stuff. So it's pretty easy to write, and if somebody's giving you a lot of drama, like they're observing you too much and stuff, you can put their creeper tendencies into a psycho thriller pretty easy. So it just writes itself. So I wrote several, and that's one of the ones I wrote right before I moved out of that place. This like comical dark comedy about nuns that they're trying to get rid of demonic possession on the dance floor. It's ridiculous.
This sounds see, and this is the thing, when movies are like not. I like when movies don't take themselves seriously. Like, but when people are like literally acting in movies, I'll just give you an example. There was one that's like was filmed in the area that I live in. So like there was this movie in the 70s called Empire of the Ants. So essentially what it's about is it's about these ants that eat radioactive waste that was left on the beach and then they go around killing people.
I
And
don't
it's
think I've
like
seen it sounds ridiculous. Yeah.
it is. It's such an absurd movie. It's like I'm like, how does anyone take this like and you see the actors taking themselves seriously. I'm like, this all looks fake. And it's filmed in the 70s, so it even looks more fake because it's like it's not even like they're doing CGI. They're like having the people like sit there and like animate and like chop the people up with like the it's an absurd movie. Anyway, it's like my mom introduced me to this. She's like, this is filmed in this area. I'm like, does that mean I have to see it? Like this movie's dumb.
There's this movie I've seen. I don't know. It's kind of similar. It's called La Planète Sauvage. It's like Savage Planet or whatever in English. It's a French movie, but all the people are like in captivity with aliens.
See, there's something about back then I feel like older movies were like more original. There's something, what was it? I'm gonna paraphrase this. I saw Rick Rubin talk about this, where he's basically like, music is extremely creative because the musician starts with themselves and people then get to follow in with them, whereas movies are just made to like mass produce and there's no creativity in them. And I kind of agree with that.
In the corporate scene, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Not
that's what I'm talking
indie,
about.
but,
Like,
it is more of an indie film than what I mentioned too. It is
yeah,
from the
well,
70s or whatever, but it's still indie.
indie films are different. Indie films are always more, but it's like when you look at like Disney and
I
Disney
think
like
that's why I don't want to be an actor as opposed to a singer because I like
right.
having a voice also. That's the same kind of concept, yeah.
See, I would say I would actually do my own movie. Like I would star in my own movie, but I don't think if somebody handed me a script and like, wow, I thought this was amazing, I might do it, but like I'm not gonna be in like RoboCop 5 or like anything like that. Like I'm not gonna do anything like that because it's already been done. It's like, why? I mean, well, okay. Since you talked about like acting, like would you ever have like a desire to do a play?
Yeah,
Maybe
I've already
instead of
done
like
several. I have one on my YouTube channel that I did. So I've done some musicals, and I did that partially to get better at singing, right? And I didn't really vibe with the drama of that style of music. I don't like stuff that's so many major keys. Like I like musicals, but I like Phantom of the Opera the most. I like the ones that really dabble in like other styles of music or like Sweeney Todd or something. It's not like I
yeah.
don't want to just be in a musical that only does major keys because I'm going to get sick of the music before the show day and I'm going to
So
quit.
like
And that's what happens. So, like, I did a
so
few just for the vocal training, the practice, and it was great. But it's just I just don't vibe with anything
so
that's
you so
always major
you
all the time.
so you'd probably be down to do like a screen or sorry, like a stage version of like Nightmare Before Christmas, something like that.
Maybe. I
Right.
mean, that'd be kind of
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of. So I did several musicals and I did some theater. So I've done theater in the past. I like acting. It's fun. I'd still do acting if somebody asked me and had a really good role. But that's the thing is like I feel like I'm never going to take a role that I wouldn't want. It is part of it. And people say you have to do that when you start and stuff. But I feel like I just would never want to do that because um, I would never want to be known as something I don't really like. And that's something that
No.
actors have to deal with and they have to accept when they accept roles too.
Well, it's a lot of because especially we're talking to Hollywood. a lot of times, and this is why I wouldn't want to do Hollywood, because apparently at some point you have to sign contracts to do like, if we give you this movie, you have to do these amount of movies for us, and sometimes you end up taking a shitty movie just to get out of a contract. I'm like, that sounds horrible to me. Like,
Yeah.
the concept of like, well, why would you do it? And you realize because most actors can't do things other than, I would arguably say, modeling, which, I mean, I mean, let models be models. My thing is,
I just like
I
having a voice is part of it, because I
yeah,
do know that it's, if you have a good voice, you should probably use it, right, for good reason,
right.
you know. So there's that. I mean, you just don't really have that voice as an actor, then you just kind of are not saying anything outside of your movies, to avoid offending people and stuff. And I mean, you could, still be an advocate, you could still be doing different charity work and stuff, but it's not the same thing as being a musician where you're outspoken all the time and you're always expressing your opinion and everything you write when you are doing the lyrics. But a lot of musicians don't even do that. Like what you were saying earlier, some of them, they're not writing anything. So their voice isn't being heard or expressed. You might say that's a tragedy of some of those artists, is that they do have things to say, but they're not saying them.
And
So you
that's
hear them
why,
perform, but you don't hear them perform their own words.
and it's almost why it's like, I don't know. This is just me as a musician. If somebody were to play me a beat, and I think this comes like, this a little bit hip hop of me. It's like, if you like play me a beat, I can honestly sit there and be like da 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 da, and just like rattle stuff off. And like, not a lot of people can do that. It's like sit down and focus, but it's like give me a pen, I can start writing down what I have to say. Like, keep playing it, I'll keep on going. Like,
Yeah, I think anybody can if they take the time. Not everybody's good at it, right? Like it sounds like you're better at it than the average person, but
I
they have to
I
practice to learn.
right.
They should be
I re-
doing it. I don't know.
I remember being in audio engineering school, and like all of these guys around me were like making these complex beats, and my beat was so minimalistic and simple. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, nothing's going." I'm like, "Just wait." I'm like, "Wait till you hear it all together. It's all gonna make sense. I know what I'm doing."
Hmm.
But that's because, I mean, at least okay for me. You said you've handed songs off to other people. Do you feel like you would honestly want to hand off like a weaker song to somebody else and like keep your stronger songs for you, or would you hand somebody a song that's like really strong?
So I do my production, right? Like I am a producer
Yeah,
because I produce my music,
right.
but I don't usually produce music for other people. It's a little bit different with collaborators because then I would much
Yeah,
of the time be laying down most of the track, or I receive something from Dasmine like keys, or sometimes she makes the whole beat with our
right.
collabs. Other times she'll send me the keys and I'll work with keys and I'll do different things. And we both work together on our production when we do
Yeah,
collabs. But not everybody does that. Like some people do just vocals with me, and so I'll work with them in a vocal capacity. But they don't necessarily offer the lyrics even, so I have to give them something to start with. And I want to sound cool too. If I told them to say whatever, then they might just say whatever they're thinking on that day, and that might just be random, like their grocery list or something. Not everybody does that so well.
yeah. Not everybody's good. That's why, like, if I were writing a song that's a little bit more like poppier and it's like a song that could be sung by anybody, that would be the kind of song I would hand off to somebody. I'd be like, here you go. Here's a demo. I don't really need this song.
So I usually
Say,
like what I do in my work is if I write lyrics that I feel like it would sound better with the female vocalist, then I would give it to
yeah,
them.
well, yeah,
Yeah, but I've had other cases like I made this song in Portuguese called the Sete Minha Putaria, and then I had a vocalist who she did the lyrics after me, like over a year after I'd released it, and so then I dropped it as a duet. And I think it sounds a lot hotter with the second vocalist because then it's two people saying that, to accept how hot we are or whatever, you know. So it's a little bit more universal for that reason. Um, I have considered doing that with some other tracks too. Some I might re-release with like duets and stuff. Yeah.
See, I haven't written a song where like I've felt the need to put on somebody else, and like maybe I will have that in the future. But it's like most of the time the only time I'd be like, at least for me, I would do like a remix where I'd like take out like a bridge part, and I'd be like, let's give this to a rapper, let a rapper just like fit in on top of it. It's like that way we do a
Yeah, and I've tried to do
collaboration.
that too, but every time I hand a rapper an empty spot, they don't do anything. I have to give them the lyrics so they don't do it. And it's the same
What?
with other vocalists. Like I've asked rappers, been like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna clear the spot for you to finish this track," and they've never done it, like ever. It's so weird. And when I send people lyrics, they do it more often. So a lot of the vocalists I work with, they've done it with lyrics and stuff. But whenever I've asked somebody to do it, and I haven't given them full direction. They just don't know what to do usually. So, and part of that's because I don't know. I have controversy too, and that's intentional. And it wouldn't be interesting if there wasn't controversy. So, yeah.
See, I don't. I guess it's because the people I would want to work with are people that are my friends. So like, I feel like if
I'd be
you're my
open to that
friend,
too. I don't know. I don't usually ask my friends because I tried to do that in the past, and they're so hard to work with. Um, not that
well,
my friends aren't cool. It's just I tried to do things like I once I made an entire script for a horror film, a
yeah.
slasher film with like all my friends, and like
Well,
that's when I realized just people just
what
aren't
I'm what I'm
do it
what I'm
without
saying
having
what
it.
I'm
So
saying
yeah,
is
usually
do a
just what they're saying.
is do it as a remix. So like when you're saying is like you were talking about a song where you're needing them to fill a space where it's like if I already have the original version of the song, you're just here making it so I can flip the like version of the song. Like
Oh,
I
I've done
already
that
have the
before too.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah, I already have the song. Like I
I
don't
arrange them
need to.
sometimes. Sometimes I get the beats from people, and then I make it into a
Yeah.
remix because
Yeah.
I'll just finish the edits and stuff. So
See, I don't even want to. I mean, I'll take it one step at a time. I have to get into a studio and record first. Like,
So I
which,
feel like that song, the one I mentioned about the duet, that one I felt like
yeah,
audibly I wanted to have a higher line because I thought it would sound better, and the lyrics I knew that having a male and female vocalist would give it that kind of sound. It made it sexier to me, because then it's both, right? And then on the other tracks where I write the lyrics and stuff, and it's not intended to be fully a duet or whatever, those I'll usually send them specific lyrics. I did make one recently that was a little bit random. I don't know if the artist will get back to me, but I sent it to them and asked them. I was hoping that would be a full duet, though. I don't know. I can do a lot of editing with vocals, so if somebody does my whole main line with me, I can pan us on different sides and then make it all scatter and stuff and change pitches and all that. And it'll sound great because I do all the edits, but I need more than one main line usually to double with. So
yeah,
and I've done
I
that on
mean,
my own. So I have the song Strip coming out, and I'm also dropping
yeah,
some acapellas just to show people that I can do acapellas and stuff, and the way it's stacked and layered and stuff, so they can hear it. So on Strip, I have one. It's the boy band "Eat Your Heart Out" acapella or whatever. I just put that because it's like a boy band could do this if they just took the time to record multiple lines and stack them and actually sing in tune and not do anything. And like that's easy for me. I'm like, okay, this took me like less than 30 minutes, but or I guess an hour or so with the vocal edits because there's so many. But um, the boy bands can't do it, so I don't get it.
I
Sometimes the corporations really just ruin everything.
I actually to that acapella thing, I did it. There's one time it wasn't my song, but it's like I was just lying down one Sunday morning, and I'm like, let me just record this on my phone. I put it out like unedited, like everything, and like I put it out and I said like real musicians are never afraid to have people hear them sing a cappella. So I'm like, and I just kept on doing it with different songs because it's like if I can actually sing, I have no problem with you hearing me sing. Like I have the vocals. I've worked on stuff. In my opinion, I think me not singing as much and like letting my voice rest has actually made my voice sound better. I mean, it's hard when you're like constantly having to put out stuff. I get it, and like constantly performing shows to like always sound your best, but it's like when you hit it, it's like, there it is. That vocal sounded great. But of course,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
all
and partially why I wanted to drop acapellas is because like I figure if somebody's like a big enough fan, they could make a remix with it, you know. And I might share the remix or something too, because I'd be curious to hear what other people make also as far as remixes of tracks, you know. So I just thought it's cooler to have that option with the acapella, and you know sometimes I find inspiration with other artists like acapella mixes. So
and sometimes well, okay, the one thing, I mean, this kind of goes with the auto tune thing, going back to that. So it's like I'm assuming you're probably not a huge fan of like the AI making music now, right?
no, I don't think
Yeah.
AI art is art at all. It's just scrambling other people's art and taking fraudulent credit. It's pretty bad, honestly. It's different when you've made the piece and then you click, you know, like AI suggestion, which I don't do, but I know it's like on Adobe and stuff. And you could have your main body of work finished and then just do a little augmentation. That's not really a big deal. But it does bother me that somebody can put my song in there and say, spin it with AI, and then they can act like they wrote it. That shouldn't be
See,
legal at all. That's trash,
the
honestly.
only thing that I kind of like because it's interesting to hear it is like when somebody does like Britney Spears AI version of like let's say Bad Romance or something like that, where it's like it'd be interesting to hear what Britney would have done if she had done that song. Like that kind of thing I don't mind because you know it's not real.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
like
I guess for fun and stuff, that makes sense too.
yeah,
You know, there's just always that issue with corporations and all that. So
but it's just
I
what was
think
that?
your earlier question, what you were saying about vocals, like you don't have to be perfect at vocals, but nowadays it's a lot easier to make a really strong track by just re-recording or recording more. You know, because you comp it together. And in the past, people sat there with a tape recorder and they talked into it.
Yeah,
And then you just have to be perfect with the tape recorder. Or you have to rewind and completely, you know, restart with the original beat and stuff. So it's not like that anymore because you have the separate layers. You can shop them all together and stuff. And
right.
yeah, so I
And
think
it's
everybody should just do more takes. And if it sounds that bad, it shouldn't be out. But it's
but
also supposed to be like, oh, it saves us live. But it's like, if you can't sing live, then why are you singing?
that that is so true. I mean, granted, people say the thing I hate is when people justify it for like award shows when they say like, "Oh, they didn't have time to do sound check." What do you mean they didn't have time to do sound check?
I
Like
think you just need a
you
backline. I mean, like, I get like, you know,
no,
well, if they have at least a backline vocal, then they should be able to just sing over it. I get if the mic has some kind of fault or issue, like sometimes that
right.
you have to, you know, restart or something. But um, yeah,
My thing is if you're gonna do something, and I do this, I'm guilty of this too, and I do it sometimes. It's like if you're singing and dancing, it's like sing on the verses, let the backing vocal take over the chorus, and you just move and then come back in and put your voice more into the verses or the bridge if that's what you need. But like, don't just sit there and like say, "Oh, I can't do anything."
I don't think
It's
it
like,
makes sense unless you're like sick, really, to go on stage and not sing on top of the track with it finished. Because you can just add your vocal line. It doesn't have to be louder than the track. I mean, it's already
yeah,
on there. If you mess up, it's okay because it's going to be close enough. But I don't think it really makes sense to just only lip sync. You know, why not have at least a quiet main line? At least, you know, to me that's kind of weird. But
well, okay.
uh,
I will say if you're sick or Jennifer Lopez. No, I'm kidding. But like, I love
she
when
does have
people.
some active movements, I guess. Yeah, when she's doing like the pole and stuff at the Super Bowl, I'm sure.
Well, oh wait, you don't know this? Like the whole story about how Jennifer Lopez pretty much has never sung any of her own songs.
I don't know what you mean, but
As in, okay, so like, for
I'm sure she
example,
has some auto tune for sure.
no. There has been actual proofs. Like, if on that song, I think it was "If You Had My Love," the song was written by Natasha Ramos. Natasha Ramos's vocals are all over the song. J Lo didn't do anything on that song. They basically retook the demo and basically like
Oh yeah, people do that
layered it.
sometimes. Yeah, with the producers. That is really impressive though. The producer did the background vocals too. She must be good at that.
But she did it all the time. Like J Lo never did any of her own songs. Like it's and it's like everyone's like she's so amazing. I'm like, but she's not though. She might be pretty. She might be. I was gonna say she's a good actress, but she's not. We all know that. But like, it's like she might be pretty, but she's not vocally talented. Which you don't have to be a musician nowadays, as we pointed out. Auto tune is everything. Is on everything.
It's not
Except,
necessary though. It's the point, I guess, that you're trying to make, right?
well, it's
'Cause
that,
I'm
and
sure
it's
she could do
also
more takes too, regardless of what's happening,
and
And
also
I
and
don't think
also
she's an artist necessarily like Lana Del Rey on SNL or whatever,
right.
a bad day for Lana or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's she probably needs it for that SNL sketch if she's not just joking. But
And
even then, she could do a better day or just keep recording and comp it together. So
or it's like
I just don't think it's necessary.
if you seriously need vocal effects, like let's get real, you probably use this yourself. It's a technology that was invented in the 80s, vocoder. Like
Yeah, yeah, there's this too. Yeah,
it's like
I
that's
just
what
don't like
people
how warbled autotune sounds. It's always so warbled, and it makes the timbre of the tone on their vocals sound bad. And I can't listen to artists that I like that I honestly feel like you're one of the best vocalists on earth to me. Like, and I don't want to really like be that dramatic about anyone right now and mention who they are, but it's also that I just hate how they sound with autotune because they sound terrible. Because it's
right.
warbled, the pitch has been like compressed to be like
Well,
it
no,
just sounds so bad to
I,
me, and there are people that like I've listened to like every album I've ever heard them
yeah,
make, and I liked all of them, and then they just dropped this record and the auto tunes on like 80%, and I'm like, I think this sounds awful, and
I,
the gays are insane. Once again, they have terrible taste. I'm so disappointed in their culture.
see, I'm
You know
not.
what I mean?
I know one of the
That's-
artists that you think this about. I'm not gonna say it because like obviously we're not trying to start something, but like
Well, I mean, I like everything
yeah,
else by them. Is my point, right? I'm
yeah.
not trying to call them. I don't want
I
them to
know
feel bad either. But it's so disappointing when an artist like that they have such a great voice. It's the sound of their voice. It's also their tone and everything, and that tone is lost when they auto tune it so heavy. So yeah, that's probably the thing that bothers me the most.
first of all, let's be clear. When you say the gays have terrible taste, it's because a lot of them are
Are too
doing
mainstream.
are doing bumps of like they're doing like hits of G and like
Coke and
they're
pop
like yeah, they're like
and stuff like that. And so
they're
they're
not
just
listening to the song. It's like why certain gays are like, "Oh my
not
god,
everybody,
I love
obviously.
Martin Garrix."
We're obviously talking about
Yeah.
what we've witnessed.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I know somebody who's like obsessed with Martin Garrix. So I'm like, yeah, it's like and it goes to like every Martin Garrix concert. I'm like, you're such a fucking asshole. You're literally paying to watch somebody play a space bar on a laptop. That's what that's what EDM concerts are. You're sitting there, some guy's hitting the
If
space
they
bar, and
don't
he's like
dance or do anything, and
sitting
I
there
don't get
like,
that because I always dance, right? So I'll play my track and I'll sing and I'll dance over it, but then some
yeah.
guys just stand there, and I don't get it. Like I get they're coming to listen to the music, but sometimes they're there and they're like dealing Molly or something, and that's just how they're getting through the show.
See, my thing is, I perform entirely sober. Like
Yeah, I prefer to too. I don't like to drink even because it messes up your performance. I drink
it
after, but I don't drink
it
a
me-
lot.
it messes up your well. What I point out to people, and I can't believe people don't know this, that alcohol dries out your throat. Like,
It does, yeah, it does that too.
and it's like with that, and there's also something to being the sober one in the room, because like when you see somebody else drunk, it's like I had somebody one time, like this drag queen had like shit talked my drag like behind my back, and she told my drag sister, who gladly put on this all information. I went to an event out of drag one time. She didn't know who I was, and she got drunk. She was drunk off her ass, and she started hitting on me. I'm like,
Hmm.
you think my drag shit, but you think I'm hot enough to fuck? Interesting.
Sometimes people are rude because they're attracted. It can be really annoying because if they don't have a handle on it, you know, it's really rude. But I have noticed that often their interest will spiral from sexual interest to sexual harassment to racism to either misandry or misogyny very quickly. Very,
Well,
very.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
okay.
a lot of people do not have a handle on it and they don't think about it and they don't realize that's how they talk or act. And they think that they might even think that, oh, it doesn't really happen that way because that's a man. He doesn't get sexually harassed, but they're the one doing it because they lack the self awareness.
Well, okay. One thing I want to ask you, because like obviously I do know that you are Hispanic, but like you're very white presenting. Do you ever have people like say stuff about Hispanics, not knowing that you are Hispanic to you, like racist things, like when they're
Not
really drunk?
usually. It's weird. Most people can tell. I don't know why. I guess it's just something about the way I present myself or something. Because I go into the airport and people ask me for directions and stuff. And I don't know. I guess maybe it didn't used to always be that way, but it's just I feel like people can just kind of tell now. Not everyone, but a lot of people can tell that I speak Spanish somehow. Um, so, but I don't know. Sometimes that does happen. I think so. I learned to speak Spanish from my mom, and she learned in Panama. So there's like accent things. My accent's more like Texan and stuff, and she's got more like a Central America accent. So it's like um, sometimes you talk to other people, their accent's completely different. That's usually the bigger thing in Spanish is the accent. It gets very confusing. But if you're in another place, sometimes they can kind of look down on you because you're not as local or whatever, and you know they might be weird. But
See,
yeah,
that's I get where you're coming from. That's why I say people like when people say a positive thing about Florida, I'm like, it's a piece of land. Like that's literally just about as positive. That's why, because Florida is so clicky. That's why I don't get
if
asked
you're
to
in
perform
Miami,
much.
you would definitely see a lot more Spanish speaking,
Yeah, but
but it is
I'm
more
talking.
expensive.
I'm
So
talking. I'm talking about queer entertainers. They're very like. That's why I don't perform much, because I
they have
refuse
a
to
big drag
lips.
scene too. I hear
Yeah,
Miami, Orlando does.
yeah. I mean, around here they have a drag scene. They don't like the fact that I sing live and like that I get to
Oh, I get
actually.
that. Yeah, yeah, that's
They'd
always.
rather have they'd rather have me lip sync, and I'm like, no, that's not my thing.
If you have a
It's like,
drag competition, maybe they'll be more open to it because they might be more like,
I
bored.
have. I've the last one I did, I lost because like the judges were in favor of the person who won over me. When they said, "Oh my gosh, you should have," they said you only lost by 2 points. I'm thinking that's bullshit. I should have won by 4, and you fucking know it. I thought this in my mind. I'm like, my voice sounded better than this person's. It's like, granted, I wasn't doing an original song. I was doing a cover, but it's like, but I'm like, I did a cover and I fucking killed it. My vocals were amazing. I was so into it, and like my voice was like perfectly growling when I needed it to be, and like because I do this thing. Granted, yes, I love performing my own songs, but I also like am that performer who's like, I like doing non-hit songs of people. Like everyone's like, I would rather do this. I'd rather do this. Like when some people think like Lady Gaga, I love doing Poker Face, I love doing all this, but there's something about doing sex streams or doing what is it, swine songs that aren't necessarily like hit songs that I feel like I can get more into, and like the audience should get more into it. But people want to hear hits. They want to, as you said, gays are boring and basic. Like
Well, not everybody, but yeah.
not everyone, no, okay. I love I love the queer community. I have to say this. I have to interview more queer people. No,
You know what I
no.
mean? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm very opinionated. Like,
That's the point.
it's like both of us are. We're fucking artists, as I always say when people are like, "You're opinionated." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a musician. What did you expect? You expected me not to have an opinion? Like, expected like, if you don't want to hear what I have to say about something, don't ask me."
Mhm.
But I am very that way. Okay, I'm almost done. So these next two you could probably answer quickly. So, have you ever considered doing OnlyFans?
Yeah, I thought about it before, but it's like you still have to go through all those promotional networks and pay people to advertise you and stuff. And I'm not really that interested, but I've met a bunch of people that are on there, and a lot of them follow me
Yeah.
on X and stuff. And sometimes I see them at photo shoots and stuff. And yeah, so that's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, I can kind of my thing is when you do it, the worst part is, and why I would never want to do it, is like you have to sit there and constantly like basically dumb yourself down to people and be like, because people are like, "Oh, I saw you do this on OnlyFans." Yes, but I'm a fucking artist. But I saw you do this. It's like, why can't you separate one thing from another? It's like when I'm doing music, I'm doing music. When I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing a podcast. I feel like it's easier to separate. But like when you're getting fucked on camera, all of a sudden everyone thinks that that has to involve in your music. Like, I
I don't know
lost
because
my
I've
mind.
seen some people do it, and then I've seen some with huge fan bases from it or whatever. But it's not huge for all their art necessarily. So that's partially why I'm
No,
not that into it. Is because I do modeling. That's
yeah,
enticing and stuff too, and that's cool. And I like to use that on the covers. But the main reason I started doing modeling was to use it with the music. It's for
right,
the music. It's for like I want to look better in
yeah.
music videos. I want to have more music videos and more
It's,
album covers. So that's why I
I
started
mean,
modeling. I didn't do it to turn into OnlyFans, but I get when people are thirst trapping or whatever. There's still
well, and it's like, here's the thing. It's like if some people don't have an imagination, like you're wearing like the things you're wearing, it's like you could be creative enough. Use well, this is the artist in me. It's like use your mind to think about a sexual scenario with Sage Suede. You don't need him to do anything. It's like he's pretty much giving you what you want. Just use your imagination. And if you don't have one, you're boring. Anyways, so okay. So what's one thing that you wish people knew about you?
um I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel like when people do know who I am, I don't have a problem with them, and they're actually like easy to get along with. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make a music brand to begin with, was because I felt like it'd be easier to be understood. Um, and that definitely isn't the case. I mean, a little
Right.
bit, because if people really get to know you, yeah, but how many people look at more than an album? Some people will, but not everybody's gonna know you. I mean, you're really good fans, I guess, will know you through your art, and then they would know you in that sense. But
Right.
it's not the same thing, I guess. I don't know things about me in particular. I guess I just dropped my new EP, Probable Cause, today, which is pretty cool. And I
Oh,
resampled that remix I made, or I made a song called Thief in Blue a while ago on the album Renegade, which is
yeah.
about possession of drug paraphernalia. So I resampled that because back then I released it because I thought weed should be legalized. And so I released it, and then I sent it to the city of Austin, and they legalized marijuana like a few months or a month or so later.
Yeah.
And so like I made sure to use that for advocacy. And so then I made this remix because the issue of civil forfeiture is still a big deal in policing. They basically just steal whatever. And there's really no consequences. So um, that's the same situation. Like it was a possession thing, but they just
Yeah.
took a bunch of shit for themselves. You know,
Well,
it
I
didn't.
mean,
It's not something that they're gonna throw away. They're not gonna throw it away in evidence locker. It's not gonna sit there. Somebody just went and smoked it themselves. So it's just trash.
no,
So
I mean, look,
I'm just bringing it up again for the civil forfeiture side. It's why I did the remix.
I mean, again, like, let's be clear. As someone, I'm just talking about the cops in general. My thing is, when people are like, the cops are good, I'm like, but are they though? They're literally, I would
Nobody's gonna
say, one of the
confiscate
requirements of
weed,
being a
right?
cop
They're just gonna
is
use it. They're just gonna
being
use it behind your
racist.
back, you know? It's the
Yeah.
same thing with coke. You know, if they're confiscating weed and coke in lockers, people are just gonna steal it,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna say, "Oh, it went missing." If it's not an active case or something, they just won't know what's going on probably half the time. I know they have like records and stuff to try to keep it from happening, like they do at hospitals, but um, it still happens. I mean, there's really no point in taking stuff that other people are just going to use for themselves in the police force. You know,
Well, I would say
it's part of
that
our part.
what I was saying before is like, overall, as a police officer, I feel like, and a lot of people may say that this is a controversial point, but I think it's 100% true. I feel like there's something to where, in order to be a police officer, you have to innately be racist. Because, granted, yes, they go after white people, but let's get real. 9 times out of 10, when you're hearing about the tragic things that are happening with the cops, they're going after black people when they're trying to like get them. And essentially, what they're doing is they're just killing them. They're
I mean,
killing them
we
with the
shouldn't be doing that kind of thing, you know, with
yeah,
like
but it
incidents,
happens
you
all the
know,
time.
especially when you see the violence, you know, that happens to people on recordings and stuff. It's never appropriate, you know, regardless of who it is. But yeah, I don't really want to, you know, think too much on how people get traumatized in that field because I can't really speak on it. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, so it
I
is a big deal with racial profiling and policing, and that's the other reason that I'd released that song to begin with. Is I felt that I managed to work through it. I wanted people to know there is a legal route to take. You know, you can possibly get it removed from your record, like I did, because you want to move forward with your life. You know, and that's something that you can do potentially, but also, you know, I also managed to help with the legalization process by sharing it with my congressional constituents, you know, like representatives, and I sent it to
actually
the president and stuff too. So yeah.
wait, slow down. I'm trying to catch up here. So like, so you were you were arrested at one point for drug possession, is what you're saying?
Of paraphernalia, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, but it wasn't no big deal.
It's
I mean, just like I
it's
mean, it was annoying and it was a waste of money, and I thought it was wrong. I thought it was unwarranted search and seizure because all I did was roll a stop sign. So I made sure to report that to my, you know, the mayor and the city of Austin, and that's why they legalized it on the city level. The state hasn't yet, I don't think, fully, but it's pretty close at this point. So it's
well,
probably not going to be that long. Um,
again. Let's put it this way. Like, think about it. When people are like stopping people for drug paraphernalia and drugs, it's like, the thing is, when I have to say, when you think about that, when people are arresting people for drugs, and meanwhile they're letting murderers walk out on the street in LA for after like 5 days when they should be serving like 15 years of life. It's like, when you have to think about that, it's like, why are we policing people from taking drugs? If people want to take drugs,
well, they
this
say
is my view.
victimless crime, right? When it is
Yeah,
victimless and somebody hasn't been hurt or, you know, is a
yeah,
personal
and it's like,
portion
if
of
it,
something like mine was, it's not
yeah,
even their issue. They shouldn't even be involved. You know, you
and
shouldn't even be
it's
searching someone's car because you pulled them over for rolling a stop sign. You should be lighting the stop sign so they can see it at night.
no. I remember like
That would be correct policing. And why don't they do that?
one time I had, when I was in a rental car, I had like a guy in there who had weed on him, and I got pulled over because I I didn't know how to turn on the headlights in the car because like it was obviously not my car, and I was renting it, and like a cop pulled me over, and then they brought this drug sniffing dog. They're like, "Do you have drugs in here?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, just because you can smell drugs in the car doesn't mean that I have them. And
Yeah,
like they gave me a ticket. And it's like it's like, I'm sorry. I was trying to go home. Like, it's like, leave me alone. I'm not. bothering
that does
people.
go back to your other point about, art. When something bad happens to you, sometimes you want to talk about it, and that is an instance where that was the case for me, and that's why I recorded them doing it, 'cause I knew they weren't doing
Yeah,
anything, and I wanted to address that. Not only is this an issue, to make that change happen, just to point it out was helpful, and to give people that route to know that there is somewhat of a legal route you can take when you're in that scenario. They also started mass relief programs in the city of Austin afterwards, um, which it was too late for me to do because I'd already, gone through a lawyer. But
right,
there are other lawyers that were offering to relieve it for free in mass release. So a bunch of people would go one by one to the judge and just get relieved. And
right,
the fact
and
that that kind of crime, it's not really a crime. It's victimless, and these are all random people that are just like tired of getting, you know, that shouldn't even happen. A victimless crime where everybody's going one at a time to the judge and getting relief. That's horrible. That's like petty theft at that point to be doing that on a scale to all the people. Austin's had a
it's
really big deal with over policing and all the electronic clubs shutting down over a long time, and that's one of the reasons
yeah,
the music scene has so much trouble here is over policing. Because there's a 3 strike rule. If clubs violate it, they get cops called like 3 times. They shut down the whole club. So it's been a problem with the city of Austin for a very long time.
but okay. Well, what could a club? Well, I mean, what could a club get? I mean, I can imagine. I know
Well, it's
what a
really
club
like
could get shot
anything,
down for.
really. It's not just like it's not just like somebody got shot or something, or like a murder or something. It's like really any disorderly reason to be called to the establishment. It's too
See,
broad, and it just has caused all these places to get shut down completely. And for the electronic music scene, that's extremely destructive.
yeah, because I mean, it's like when you think about
It's bad.
when people say like, "Oh my gosh, there are people doing drugs at a club." Like, it's a club. Of
It's
course, there
gonna
are people
happen. I
doing
mean, I get
drugs.
when they shut him down. Like, there was this place called Kiss and Fly that got shut down for that because it was like a ring, right, or something in the management. But I mean, they just open new places in the same location. So
Yeah. Or another one.
I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh, this is more at a queer bar. It's like that dancer is gonna try and take somebody in the back and have sex with them. It's like, yeah, that should be expected to happen. That's what happened here. That's why the place I used to perform at in Orlando, I say it was the place of no rules. Because like people would, like, there used to be a beach where people would go out and suck people's dicks all the time. Like people would go out there and do drugs. It's like when you're in a queer space, you should expect certain things to happen. Or when you're at a club, you should expect certain things to happen. If somebody's not like causing a fight, like beating somebody up or getting shot, or like again, as you said, like being
It
when
should be
somebody's being,
responsible use, right?
yeah,
For the
it's
most
like,
part, like our policy isn't enabling responsible use as much as it should. Like people are still doing needles, so where are the exchange programs? Stuff like that. Like, are people aware that they should have Narcan if they use any kind of narcotic? It's now publicly available. I don't use it, but if anybody in your family does, you should have it so you can use it if they overdose. You know, so stuff like that. That's what they should be really enforcing. And encouraging in the public. In a setting like a club or a bar, I get them arresting somebody for a deal if they catch them. It's a major substance. That's really illegal. But
well,
for the
okay,
most part, it should be about them being safe in the space, not about them. If there's a fight, yeah, you break up the fight, but it's about making
yeah,
it a safe space.
but
So
it's also, it's like with drugs, I get what people say when you have to police drugs because people are overdosing on fentanyl. My thing is, there's certain ways to know if, well, I will say there are certain drugs that you know. Like I heard if
it can be in
heroin,
cocaine, and yeah, it can be in heroin too. Yeah, it's like
well,
everything.
but I don't know with cocaine. I know how you can tell it from heroin because I heard an ex-heroin addict say this. It's like if it's a lighter color brown, it's not pure heroin. It's heroin induced with fentanyl, and it's like,
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah, it's like if you want to do drugs, it's like do drugs. I don't know. My thing is whether something's illegal or something's legal, you can abuse legal stuff. Like Shit,
Well,
I've
people are
talked
gonna
about.
do things anyway, right? Is I think what you're trying to say, but you
Yeah,
want to make it safe. You don't want to destroy like a business because random people got drunk outside. That might be somebody, that might be a hobo. That might not even be someone that's a paying customer. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I've had friends. They said they walked out of bars. They got homeless people tried to mug them outside the bar, and like that's the reason they had called the police about it. But if it had been in the bar, they would have gotten a strike, even though it was a homeless person. It wasn't a paying customer, but it would have happened to a paying customer. So I
yeah.
don't know what I mean.
It's it's sad. It's like the thing
It's
is
something that it's too much. Yeah.
you can't. First of all, when to the homeless problem, which is obviously a nationwide issue, my response to that is when people say we need to do something about it. I'm like, yes, the reason that something can't be done about it is because we're busy sending money to Israel. Like, that's why there's no money in the. Well, that's why they say there's no money in the United States. There's money in the United States.
I do
Anyone who's
wonder
telling you,
sometimes, how much more we would have depending on, the quantity that's being shared. Yeah.
and it's like the thing of there are certain things. I was having this discussion with my best friend. There are certain things that we should have necessities. One of them is healthcare. One of them is housing.
I mean, I'd like
And
to vote as far as my use of
yeah,
taxes, if it's like
yeah,
you want to support war here.
yeah,
No, I don't. I don't think any of my money should go to your war. I think it should come
yeah.
back to me and other people like me that are part of the country and not elsewhere.
And
So,
I would say the other
I mean,
one is
I'm not talking about that specific war, but
yeah,
just in a general sense,
yeah.
I would often vote no.
In
Yes.
general, what was that?
Because it
What does
doesn't
it
make
say?
sense. I'm not there and it's not benefiting me. And why is my money supporting the war program? It should come back to me as well. I get the defense front, but it's not always defensive.
See, and
It's often profit sharing for
I'm
corporations.
saying with the defense fund, there's better things we could use, and I'm using a queer example of this. It's like when you have people killing queer people in the Middle East just for being queer or being gay, I feel like that's where money needs to go to rescue people and educate them from that, so that people don't just die for being with a man. Like, I feel that's a little bit more important use of resources.
I
That's
feel
just
like
my
that's kind
feeling.
of the reason I'd like to be able to vote more with that.
Right.
Or another thing, that might be too complicated to really have that kind of system initially. But in like Australia, they have a two-vote system, so you vote for the two parties you want the most, and then if the first one gets thrown out, then it's the other one. You know what I mean?
See, that kind of
That's kind of what we
that.
need in the U.S. I mean, we probably need other reform too, but I think that'd be a good place to start.
Well,
Because
yeah,
it's
because
more the general consensus leaning. It's not the
it
bifurcated leaning.
it's like I love the this or that. You have to be this or that. It's like, but you can agree with some things. That's why first of all, any queer person who says, "Oh, I support the Democratic Party 100%," you're dumb. Like, especially like White House Democratic Party. Let's get real. Ain't nothing progressive going on there. When again when you can't afford healthcare and you're running a system where you could give people healthcare and you wouldn't have to deal with people shelling out hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to support an industry that's essentially trying to screw you over, because like anytime you need health insurance they ask you for money, but it's like you're already paying for it. Why are you needing to give them more money? It's a way to fuck everyone over.
It's supposed to be a cushion, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was why they did Obamacare. Yeah, so
but even
I know it
Obamacare,
was hard to implement. It was kind of messy for various reasons, but they still got it out there. So it's a start.
yeah, that's true. Anyway, I know we gotta end this. We gotta end this soon. Clearly, we're friends. I got to clearly talk to you for hours. So, like, I mean,
Yeah, if you want to split it into two, that's fine, or whatever's chill. Um, So yeah.
Well, no, please, I don't edit anything. My thing is, I like the fact that I put things up unedited, so that way when people say, first of all, I like saying what I say, and first of all, it's like that way the guests can't say I manipulated anything they said, because it's like, well, you said it, I didn't edit it, I just
Well, I wouldn't say
posted it
that.
as
It's all
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, I give people guidelines. Like I've done 2.5, I've done almost 3-hour interviews with people. It's like with this, if I vibe with somebody, I've also done interviews as short as like half an hour because I didn't vibe with a guest, and
Yeah.
it was very clear that like they
I
were
do
awkward on
kind of feel like
camera.
what you were saying about it's a challenge with the bipartisan system, and that's why having a two
Yeah,
vote system would help.
right.
Because they kind of have the same thing in Australia, but their second vote doesn't get thrown out. Like you could vote for either Green Party or Libertarian, but your second vote could go to Republican or Democrat, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, because it's
That way, it's your
almost
more real leaning, and also supports more so the candidate you care more about than you know necessarily just kind of splintering off and mo- most of the votes getting thrown out because they're not towards the major parties necessarily. And that's
you,
part of where the corruption comes from. There's a lot of corporate interests, and corporate greed's a big deal on both sides. And I think
mm,
having that two-party system would help. Yeah, a
yes,
two-vote system for our more
you,
than two
you
parties that we have, even though it's
you
more.
know it ain't it, literally. I would say I'm one of the most anti-capitalist, pro, as I say, socialist, leaning on communist. Because this is what I explain to people when they say, "Oh my God, communism." It's like when you take communism at its core, communism is a great idea.
I don't know
When
about
it's
that. I mean,
well,
aspects of it, but
well, this is the thing. When you take communism at its core, it's the government provides for the people. That's
it's
its
never
core.
divided equally, so it doesn't really exist.
That's what I'm saying. I said when you take it
Yeah,
at its core, it's when people interfere, that's where the problem is.
but then they still
Eh,
manipulate their currency in some of those countries very actively, which is kind of suspicious because they have such a heavy vested monetary interest. So I don't know. Should they be able to manipulate their currency and also buy us out at the same time? That seems kind of problematic. I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. As I said, nothing's
Because they bought out
far
TikTok, right? And that's why TikTok got banned.
right.
But they also owned a majority stake of Universal Music. So before they bought out TikTok, or before TikTok got banned, they pulled Universal Music's catalog because they were going to get tried by the government. The government was
Yes.
going to pull the data, and they were going to be found guilty of a crime. So they pulled
I,
it,
once
but
again,
it
I'm
was all
saying
Chinese investment.
that's human. That's humans fucking up communism. That's what I just said.
Yeah, yeah, but also
That's
that's.
yeah.
I just feel like a lot of the music industry has become communist in America through this kind of investment and some of the policies of mass government funding for
Well,
corporations that mostly doesn't go to independent artists at all.
what
Uh,
what you definitely have said before is literally Sony pretty much owns, I would say, 98% of the music industry, like of
mhm.
the major
Well,
music
I don't know about
industry.
that, but
Well, because
maybe
think
40,
about it.
30, yeah, something like that.
Well, think about it this way. When you think about, okay, let's just go down. Sony owns Sony. They own RCA. They own um Universal. They own. I think they own part of Def Jam. Like
Well,
all
no,
of
no,
these,
Sony and Universal are separate. They
they
almost
are.
merged in the '90s, and there was a law to
Oh
prevent
yeah,
their merger.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
why it
Right.
bothers me so much because they were already monopolies, and they're still duopolies now. But now they get government funding that they don't deserve, which they should have never gotten going into the 2000s. It was a huge mistake to ever do that. So that's the main thing that I would like to see change, honestly. So maybe that's a good place to end our chat.
Yes, I know. Because again, we keep going, and clearly, I'll probably have you back on whenever I get time. Whenever you're promoting whatever next project you're coming out with, which will be, or like 3 projects from now. Because like as the
I got
in
to
the
this point.
time from the last time I interviewed you, you were able to put out literally, as I said, 3 projects in the time that But anyway, yes. I
Yeah,
love
you'd
talking
probably
to you,
like my
man.
Nuns and Leather book too. You might check that out. It's
I
pretty
mean,
cheeky. It's everything's tongue in cheek with me, and I'm not very
yeah.
serious.
No, I mean, and that's what I love. Like, we need artists to sometimes be. It's sometimes you need to be cheeky. Sometimes you need to be flippant. Like, if someone's asking you a ridiculous question, like, I would say one that I would. One question I would say, what is your ultimate goal as a musician? If somebody ever said that question to me, or like, what's your ultimate goal as an entertainer?
It's
I'd
a
be the
weird
person.
question.
I would be like, my goal is to fuck everybody, and like literally just like say that and leave it there because it's like you're asking me a bullshit question. You know this is a bullshit question. Like,
It kind of is, yeah. I guess they're
eh,
just wondering about your motivation. It's kind of
yeah,
hard way to say
and
it.
it's like, but it's like my motivation changes. It should change with each album. Okay, we're ending. Your motivation changes with every album, right?
Not entirely. I change my image every album. I think you should
Yeah,
always change your image, but I do feel like my mood's a lot different. So I did just drop 2 albums. I dropped Drop the Beat,
yeah,
which is more about like me feeling stalked and kind of some random stuff about Asia and stuff. And
yeah,
it's very trippy. So that's the one that you said is Yoko Ono style almost. I
yeah,
could see that. It's pretty close to something she would do.
yeah.
Or I could see her, do a version of Psycho Chocho. That'd be amazing.
Right.
Uh, Yoko Ono
Yes.
should do me, and she should drag king me. That'd be the best. And then,
Yes.
yeah, and then the new one, which is Breath of Fresh Synth. That one's a little bit more traditional pop, but with a lot of heavy dance and electric
And
sounds.
well, okay. My thing is when I say when you're talking about changing your look, the one thing that I always change is I always change my hair. Like
Mhm.
with everything that I do, I change it with every interview. It's like I pulled this out. I haven't actually worn this wig in months. I literally was like looking for it, and originally I was gonna do this black wig, but I'm like, no, this is Sage Suede. Sage Suede's more fun. So I'm like, I pulled out this wig. I'm like, I haven't worn this in 4 months. I
Yeah,
might
I
as
think
well
it's a fun way.
wear this on camera. It's like, and like with that, I always change the glasses for the interview. Like, that's the one thing I would say. I l- I love slash hate doing brand deals. Like these came from a brand deal. Like I'll
Oh,
do
that's
them
cool. I
for
like those.
yeah, thanks. I'll do
I
them
was gonna
for
say they're
stuff
kind of
that
Miami.
yeah. I'll do them for stuff that I like. Like if sunglasses brands want to reach out to me, that's kind of my thing. But like I've seen plenty of people where like jewelry brands have reached out to me. That's not really my thing. That's why I tell them no usually. But like sunglasses, wig brands, I will gladly do anything for wig brand. It'd be nice to. I don't know. I like my wigs. I like my wigs that are cheap and like I know how to take care of them. That's why when you hear people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I spent $200 on a wig," this wig was $20.
I did work with this Chinese sunglasses brand called Plateau Co. So they're pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm doing. Let's see. I just got one. I haven't announced it yet because I haven't gotten the sunglasses. I got approached by this company called Bold Vision. They they just sent me one. So essentially, they're not paying me, but they gave me like a giant discount and they just charged me for shipping. So like, it's like I essentially got 6 pairs of sunglasses for like $35.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
like,
cool.
yeah. So it's like it's not bad, but like I'll do stuff like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm sure
Maybe
the influencer code will they'll pay for those anyway, right?
no. That's what I do. It's like literally. It's like, and when you do stuff, it's like you take one picture, you tag them in it with each of the pairs of sunglasses. You're done. It's easy work. It takes like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
But anyway, with that being said, always a pleasure getting to talk to you, babe. I love getting to talk to you.
Yeah, it's good talking to you too.
Yes. And anyway, with that being said, this is Gay Out the City. I'm your host, Prince Electro Diamond, and I hope you've enjoyed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.